What is the tribal mentality and how is it activated? This will be our topic in today's episode of the Maverick Mystic Arts podcast. So tribe is something that is propped up a lot these days as very, very positive. And there certainly are a tremendous amount of benefits in finding your people, your tribe, a group of people that you can have the communal connections with that are so important to psychological, emotional, and physical health. However, there are a lot of negatives of tribe, and some of the biggest ones are the grasping at a spiritual ethos that is expressed by the tribe without understanding it and without any personal development on the spiritual path to understanding that ethos at its source. This is where some of the major issues lie. Now, of course, you have aspects of tribe that exist that can be very, very negative as well. Where there's positive, there's negative. So tribes can be, by definition, there's segregation. They're an in-group and an out-group. They're very, very insular. And this can damage the capacity of the mind to reach out and explore, because anything that is not of the tribe is negative or is an unknown. So in some tribal cultures that still exist, one of the questions that pops up for those in the tribe is, has anyone else in the tribe or the village done this activity? If not, I can't do it. And it's a very group mentality, a cohesiveness of a group. And so because the group has not ventured into the realms of whatever this unknown venture might be, oh, I can't do it. No one else in the tribe has done it. Now, we like to think of group consciousness as perhaps like a next layer of evolution, right? Just like you have an amalgamation of, cellular interaction and consciousness that makes up the function of, different organs of the body. And these function as a unit with a bunch of sub-functioning units that help with a greater functioning unit of, say, the person that's here in front of you, or that is you. So when we're exploring this, we need to understand that when it comes to the next layer of, say, an evolutionary process, we might think, okay, well, a bunch of people now acting as a unit or as a community, that's the next layer. A bunch of individual human units acting as a communal unit. Is this accurate? In one sense, yes. However, when we look at the process of spiritual sovereignty and unity, there is always the breakdown of the group unity into higher levels of refinement, right? We find sovereignty from the group, sovereignty from the density that we are existing within, so that we can reach more refined layers and then unify with those. Now, most communities on the spiritual path will max out based on the ideology of the community. You cannot have freedom of mind when you don't have freedom of mind, right? When you need to exist within the communal guidelines. So tribe has some very positive aspects from, we could say, like a humanistic standpoint. And then from a developmental standpoint, spiritually, it serves a function to raise people who are just beginning up to the level of the tribe or up to the level of the community. But anyone who is going to move beyond that refinement of the community, of that tribe, will have a very difficult time and will be pulled back to the group consciousness density of the tribe, whatever layer of refinement that might be. So in-groups and out-groups are tribal, right? That's us and them, patriots and traitors, intelligent versus the stupid, common sense, versus, once again, stupidity or lack of intelligence, or conspiracy, science versus conspiracy, common sense versus conspiracy, science versus deniers, and on and on. Now, what does the tribe prey on? The tribe will always prey on identity. And the presence of identity, to whatever layer you've managed to resolve identity into the absolute, whatever still exists, whatever forms it needs to take, that is what tribe will prey on. And tribe, unfortunately, that ethos, that tribal mentality, has very little nuance and often unwittingly displays the very same atrocities that it's so often spoken out against. And this is the realm of character, looking at character development versus caricature, right? Where you have an actual individual that's present who has a character, a history, a past, a present, hopefully a future, and all of the nuance that has made up that character, as opposed to the caricature, which is where we get into the in-group, out-group. If you're not with us, you're against us. This is where all the logical fallacies fall into this. So in order to appeal to the tribal aspect, which is also, we could say, very often a survival mechanism, is baked into the tribal mechanism. You have the logical fallacies, right? And once these are present, it's very easy to activate the tribal mentality. So one we will look at today, and we'll do a little deep dive on a few others in another video, is the appeal to authority. And this is hyper common. So, of course, a logical fallacy. And what the appeal to authority does is it takes away the experiential development of the individual, and it says, okay, forget your own perceptions, forget your own level and layer of development, forget the processes that you might need to go through to truly realize this, and assume it is true because this authority figure says so. And let's say it's in a spiritual context. You have like a leader of a spiritual group, or the main teacher of the spiritual group. What that teacher says is gold. And that is, that knowledge, that wisdom, those are the, that's the riches, we could say, that are exchanged within that group. Now, if the evolution of that teacher is not so great, then anything that is spoken by that teacher, the students attach to it, and the teacher kind of finds a nourishment in that doe-eyed, expression and that doe-eyed experience that students throw at the teacher. So the appeal to authority then from student to student is, oh, well, teacher said this, teacher said that. And of course, this is of no expression of any realization of the student and their own path. So in an ideal setting, you have the actual process of evolution, of unfoldment of the individual students at play, and that individual evolution is not subsumed by the need of the group consciousness to have some type of, pedestalized philosophy and ethos. It has to be through the development of every single person. Now, another way that the appeal to authority can be a little off is when you have experts. That's the first thing to look at, is experts. So when experts are expressing expert opinion, it is within the realm of their expertise. There is very little that is more detrimental to freedom of view than expertise in a particular domain, unless one has done a lot of view-based training and identity resolution. So in one sense, you might think, okay, the people who know the most about a particular topic is this group of people who've spent the last 40 years exploring this topic. However, while this can be true and there's an incredible amount of knowledge within that group, there is also an incredible amount of potential that has been swept under the rug or ignored because it cannot be true. And this is where most, breakthroughs in science and whatnot hit their stalling point for sometimes decades until all those people die who are in that group. And then the efficacy of these theories and experiments that were put forth decades before can actually come to light. So yes, an in-group or a tribe, we could say, of authoritative figures or experts in a field can have a lot of value and can point towards some aspects of truth within that field. However, that very same training and experience, that can be what holds back progress because we attach to what we know. And this is where the practice of spiritual cultivation and so on can have such great value when it comes to progress in many different fields, whether scientific or artistic. Now, the other thing that happens that's something to have your spidey senses go off at is when experts are transposing their image across fields or like entire domains completely. So an expert or even just a known figure, an appeal to authority, is anyone we might see as a star compared to ourselves. This could be anything from celebrities endorsing presidential candidates, talk show hosts endorsing medical procedures, any evidence, any suggestion that requires a person's face to be true isn't really evidence. Any evidence that requires a group to uphold it isn't really evidence. It's not really, we could say, true beyond the story that the group is imposing or beyond the story that the individuals are imposing. So pros and cons to this. Experts transposing their image across fields. I am a expert actor. Therefore, what I say is that this person, has a better foundation when it comes to being a president. I am a renowned doctor of, say, like an orthopedic surgeon. Therefore, my knowledge about astronomy is more accurate than yours. Whatever it might be, the elevation of someone's position within their field does not necessarily mean that what they say has any more credence than anybody else in another field, or even in that field, depending on the openness or closed nature of that mind, that particular mind in that field, as we were saying. So this is where you get a bit of a conundrum. Can you cross over? Yes, absolutely. And you need multidisciplinary exploration for growth. That is essential. We want multidisciplinary exploration in the absence of egoistic attachment and in the absence of egoistic discrimination against new ideas. So it's kind of, we're talking about two things. We're talking about the evolution of the individual, the openness and capacity to explore all aspects of multiple fields and explore interconnections, interrelationships, and to find greater overarching principle and nuance as well. And of course, we're all talking about how the expert can be used as a ploy to change your mind, to make you adopt a tribal mentality. Well, what I think is true, what my tribe says is true because this expert says it's true. And it's kind of lazy. So we never want to be so quick to throw our hat in the ring, our identity hat, we might say, in the ring with expressions of expert knowledge, whether in their own field or crossing fields. If we are succumbing to this, then it's a pretty simple, switch, a pretty simple magic trick to have people then fall into the tribal story that is being unwound. So training that is very useful to help with not succumbing to appeals to authority is found in basic concentration, basic watching, observing of the thoughts arising and falling away, basic vacancy of mind, that quietness, that stillness that arises when one is working on concentration or is watching the thoughts for longer periods of time. And from there, we have freedom from our own meanderings of mind, and we can start to see the pull of stories that we're wanting to, connect to and attach to. The pull of the caricatures that we're doing the disservice of seeing as a caricature and not the service of unwinding as characters. Mental transference is a wonderful skill to develop. It's one of the most important skills when it comes to refinement on the path, because you transfer the mind into the refinement that you are going to explore. And then through that mental transference, that's the alignment. Through that alignment, that's the resonance that you're then able to work through the mental, astral, and physical body centers and fields. The mental transference is, it's like the bell, or the beater rather, of a gong, right? In order to have the vibration of the gong and the sound spread out, you have to meet it, you have to resonate it. And so mental transference takes us to that resonant point. We're able to then hit the gong of that higher vibration, and that beater is the movement of the mind, right? The mind's ability to touch that refinement. So mental transference becomes very important because it allows us to transfer into the group consciousness of the out group that is not of our tribe. It allows us to transfer into the group consciousness of our tribe. It allows us to tap into the individual minds and emotions of the in-group, of the out-group, and through this, we gain much greater understanding and compassion for both in-group and out-group. And then you get to move beyond in-group and out-group, and you become, a being of everything. And that's where things get a lot more fun, because you're able to be beyond accepting when it comes to all aspects, all polarities. You exist beyond polarity, right? So mental transference is key, and it really allows us to start to bridge these gaps of judgment and of dominance that's so common, right? So when it comes to tribal authority, you dominate. The ethos of the tribe is there to dominate the mind and emotional matter of the group within it, to draw it into coherence with the group, right? And you'll see this across the board. Now, another great exercise is elemental, of course, cultivation and understanding and comprehension, training so that you can really feel all the elements, really build your resilience with the elements, your strength with the elements, and understand them to a degree that when emotion and mental substance are intermingling, the astral and mental worlds are intermingling to pull us in one way or another, instead of being dominated by the emotion that might pop up, we perceive it as the element that it is, as its energetic fuel, we might say. And that understanding, oh, this is the fire element, it's not dominant, it's the fire element. Once you have that, then you can work with the transmutation of the elements, which would be, say, from that fire element example, transmuting dominance to, say, courage. The courage required to have an open heart, to have that openness that does not need to impose segregation of tribe, that does not need to, say, use the air element in its negative for judgment and blame of others. It can then transmute, again, the elemental transmutation of judgment and blame into understanding, into discernment, right? Judgment and blame, we might say, are air element. You can always move all these around depending on how the actual elements at play are relating to the words at the given time that you're experiencing that action in normal life unfolding. So judgment or blame, when we're judging something, it's like a negative discernment. We're imposing meaning onto something instead of looking at it from its pure air element, which would be discernment itself. Once we reach discernment purely, and we don't need to have all the story involved with judgment and on it goes. Once we reach clear discernment of the air element, that discernment can then go in all directions. So that discernment applies to very intense and sincere self-inquiry, self-forgiveness. And this discernment allows us to see into the environment, everyone that's not us and us, without the attachment of story, without the density of imposed meaning, with the acceptance that discernment offers of character development, viewing individual character development across the board rather than tribal caricature imposition. And from this, every interaction, every moment of mind touching mind, of emotion touching emotion, of awareness and perception is an act of liberation and healing and freedom, because one, if you're not attached to your own story, then you will not be attached to the story of others. And the value and benefit of this is very, very far reaching. This allows us to look beyond. And the looking beyond is a necessity to working past the tribal mentality when it's been activated by internal and external environments. Again, the appeal to authority is one of the strongest activating substances or sources when it comes to the tribal mentality. Okay, so I hope you found this interesting. Thank you for watching. If you are interested in training, please check out the website. You can become a member there. We have courses in Tai Chi and Qigong, Hermetic, Alchemy, and meditation. And of course, you get access to the Zen Den, which is an extensive Q&A video reference library. And this is there so that any questions you might have, you can shoot me a note and I will throw up video answers for you. And that is there to help you with your clarity and forward movement on the path as you go through the training. Also, I teach retreats and workshops, so please, again, check out the website and see if anything coming up might interest you. All right. Thanks a lot. Have fun. Practice. Bye.